Hi everybody, I'm Steffi from The Makers, and you're here today hopefully to learn how to needle felt a heart. And it's going to be something like this. I will make one of these together, maybe with you if you've chosen to needle felt along, because obviously you saw in the description what you need to make one of these. It's actually quite very little to make one of these. And they might double up as a nice Christmas decoration, or maybe you can, I don't know, today is International Gift Day, so maybe you can make one of these to give as a gift to a loved one or a friend. And also, of course, Valentine's Day creeps up sooner than you think. But other than that, I think they're a really lovely decoration, seasonal or not. And if you've never needle felted before, then that's great. You're in the right place, because I'm going to talk as if you are completely oblivious to anything needle felted. I'll just show you the other two hearts here. So if you're new to needle felting, then the first thing that you need definitely is a felting needle, and it looks a little bit like this. Now I know that while you're watching this, you can obviously ask questions and leave comments, so please feel free to do this. I have actually got my colleague Emma, who is on the other side, so to speak, and she will be trying to answer as many questions as you can. But I will go slowly in this as well. And remember, it will stay here on the Facebook page as well of the Virtual Village Hall, and so you can revisit it anytime. And as I said, you need something like this. This is a specialist needle. Lots of people don't ever realize that you need a specialist needle. They just imagine, oh, how can you stab a needle into wool and it all sort of shapes and sculpts and you're in charge of it. You do need a specialist needle. Now, what's special about this is that the part from here to there is the working part. So if I run my finger from the tip to the fatter bit here, it sort of gets stuck, and that is because there are notches in that needle. And these notches are responsible for tangling up the wool. As you stab it into the wool, it tangles up the wool and it makes it tighter and tighter. So you imagine the fibers are really loose, and as you stab into it, they become knotted and tighter and knitted together, and until they're so tight that you can't pull them apart anymore. And in the process, the whole shape will shrink. I'm saying hello to everybody who's watching. I probably won't be able to see all the comments that you're leaving, but as I said, my colleague Emma is on the other side, and she will be there to help you if you've got any questions, or if some of the things are unclear. I've actually needle felted for 15 years, and every day is getting better. I am so in love with needle felting. I have been from the minute go, and that's something that you might find about needle felting. It can be a little bit addictive, so that's one of the warnings I will be issuing. Of course, you're also using a sharp needle, so be mindful of this. It's mainly to do with age and paying attention whilst you're needle felting, rather than doing something else and then you take your eye off and you accidentally stab yourself. So be mindful of that. Now, if you want to understand the felting process itself, you just have to remember anytime when you have been putting your favorite woolly jumper into the hot wash and it came out really shrunk and matted and it doesn't fit anymore and it feels really stiff. That's exactly what I'm going to do in a minute with a needle and some fluffy wool. And for this, I've actually got a pack here that makes 3 hearts, and I've got the ribbon to go with it as well. There are no tools in there, but I have got the tools at the ready, and it's this much wool makes this much hearts, basically. So you can see that a lot of fluffy wool can reduces a lot in size, and it makes a much smaller heart. Now, I've also got instructions here. And what I'm always mindful is that with needle felting, you can get to the same result in many ways. So, but I'm going to stick to my own instructions, because otherwise, if you watch this again and you're looking at the instructions at any point, you might think, oh, this is not what it says on there. So I'm being very mindful to do this. Now, I've got a really bright red here. I've got one with shimmer. It's like a shimmer red. It's got sparkly fibers running through it and a nice sort of deep red wool. And I'm just going to pick the one with the shimmer, because today is the kind of sparkly day. I feel a bit sparkly today. So a good practice whenever you're needle felting is to take a pinch of wool off and put it to one side, because you never know when you might need it, especially if you're using up all your bulk. And just to remind you, to make this heart, you need 15 grams of red wool bats. Now, bats is what this is. This is what bats look like. This is not the flying kind, okay? This has come from sheep. It is sheep wool, and it's spelled B-A-T-T-S. It's just the way it has been processed. Now, bats is great for 3D needle felting and for shaping. You might also know wool tops, and they're like a long strand of wool. And we love them too, but we love them mainly for surface decoration, or if you're into spinning, you love those, or if you're wet felting, then you love those too. We needle felters, we love wool bats because they shape really easily, and you don't have to put a polystyrene shape or anything like that in it, because let's face it, we're trying to cut down the plastic on the planet. So I have also got a felting mat, which frankly you don't necessarily need for the heart, because you can hold it in your hand unless you feel a little bit nervous, because obviously if you've got a felting mat to rest the heart on, then your fingers won't be less will be less in the way. Now I'm using an earth-friendly felting mat because it's 100% wool top. Again, we're trying to be environmentally friendly, but I will hold this up most of the time so that you can see what I'm doing. So first of all, I need to roll my shape up, and when I say roll it up, we mean usually fold in the shape on itself. So imagine you've got you want to get as many wraps around what you started out here, that start, and to do this you're going to have to tease the fibers out a little bit. So every time you sort of roll it and fold the sides in, because you're aiming for not quite a round shape, more of an oblong shape, tease these fibers out, because the wispier they are at the end, the easier then to felt down. So I'm rolling this out, and I've got the last wispy fibers sticking out here. If I pull them any more, then I'll just pull them off, so I'm not going to do that. But until I get to the very last wispy bits, they're just here. I'm now going to use my felting needle there, and I'm going to stab into these wispy fibers so that they are basically just getting fused or tangled up inside the main shape that I've rolled up. And it is magic. If you've never needle felted before, it feels like magic. When you stab the needle, it also makes an extremely satisfying crunching noise. So lots of people say it's therapeutic because it's repetitive, and all I'm doing basically, I've just stabbed these wispy fibers into the heart shape. So now I'm going to look at this, and where I've stabbed already, I'll see sort of the slightest hint of a dent. So I'm going to make that the top, and now I need to work on shaping these two sides up. So if this was a lump of clay, you wouldn't think twice about it. You would just literally do this and that, and then make a dent in the top. As it's wool, wherever you put your hands, wherever you want to apply the pressure, that is where you need to needle felt. So I'm going to turn the heart upside down now, or what will be the heart, and I'm going to stab into these sides that I want to make sort of more diagonally upward. Bearing in mind the heart is on his upside down at the moment. And you have to remember, wherever you stab the needle is where the reduction takes place, because you're tangling up the fibers by stabbing the needle into the wool. And you can just about sort of see how the wool responds to this. And when you're doing a 3D shape, you have to be mindful to always stab it all around. If you lay this flat on your mat, which you can of course as well, and you're just only ever stabbing from the top, you're going to make a flat heart. But there's nothing wrong with it if you want a flat heart. And so I'm going to stab the needle all around to try and keep it nice and round. And and so you need to use your eyes a little bit to see where the wool needs to be stabbed in to make that heart shape. But at the moment I'm mainly concentrating on making this come up. And then I've got the other side to do. So I'm going to change over to the other side now, also turned it upside down again. With needle felting, it's a very different craft to most crafts, because you never just work on one part and then it's done. You're continuously going back over what you've already worked on. So it would be, if I made an analogy to knitting a jumper, it would be a bit like knitting a bit of the front, knitting a bit of the sleeve, knitting a bit of the back, then knitting a bit of the sleeve, then knitting a bit around the hem, then knitting a little bit around the collar. So that is what needle felting is like. You're always coming back to an area that you've already worked worked on, which the advantage for that is that you're constantly correcting what you're making. So you don't have to think, oh, now this is it, I've messed it up. Quite the opposite. You always have a chance to adjust or to compensate for what you've done earlier. You can always revisit the area. Now, often the question that is asked, how much and how long do I need to stub this? Okay, if you're a perfectionist, you will love this because you can stub this forever and ever and ever until it's so solid that your needle doesn't fit in there anymore. If you are an impatient crafter like me, you love it too, because you can actually get away with it staying quite soft and fluffy. I mean, this is almost a heart shape. So I have worked on these two sides at the moment, and now I'm going to make this point here. For this, it might work better to have a felting mat, because what you do is, I'm holding this up, obviously you wouldn't do this at home, you leave it lying on the table. It's just that you can sort of work a little bit more vigorous on making that pointy bit at the bottom. Now, a question that also gets often asked is, how deep do you stub your needle in? Now, I'm holding my needle like this. So where my middle finger is where the working part of the needle starts. But it doesn't mean to say that you can't go really deep into the shape. And the difference is that if you only stub the needle superficially, then you're only fastening or tangling up the fibers or making the fibers firmer very superficially. It's a little bit like a chocolate brownie that's really crusty on the top and gooey inside. So this is if you only stub the needle superficially. If you stub the needle all the way in, then you're making the inside firmer as well. So if you're trying to reduce the shape, if you're trying to reduce the size, then do stub really deep into your shape. That's just another tip that I can pass on to you. Once you know how to make a shape like this, the whole needle felting world has opened up to you, because you can make several shapes and put them together. So for example, like the polar bear you can see here at the back, it's just lots of shapes needle felted together. We do lots of free tutorials on our YouTube channel. So if you take to needle felting, then you're very welcome to join our YouTube channel. It's the Makers with 2 S's, and there's a reason for it. I'm one of the S's, and Sophie, who is the co-founder of the business, is the other S. But we have grown quite substantially over the last 5 years, mostly because needle felting has become so popular, and we love it so much that we just want to spread the needle felting love in a heart shape. So you might have seen me that I'm already giving my heart that dent. If you go in a consistent line, just stabbing the needle in, this is what happens. And this is a beautiful way to demonstrate what actually happens when you stab your needle. Now, we'll just say a little bit about the stabbing movement. If you're a beginner needle felter, what often happens is then people overcomplicate. They think it can't be as simple as just stabbing a needle, even though it is. And so they sort of, sometimes they poke it, or they try and pull things out. You're not pulling anything out. You're pushing things in. And if you put any stress on that needle, so say you're doing this in a curved way, then basically you're just bending the needle and then it will break. So going in and out in a straight line, my wrist stays stiff, is the way to do it. And then when you get close to your desired shape, you're just going to stab it all over, because that is the bit that maybe a perfectionist at some point needs to be told to stop stabbing, because you can make this so nice and neat. If you are a perfectionist and you like making things nice and neat and solid, and you want to really, really perfect it, then what I'm using at the moment is a medium needle. There is a reason why there are different needle sizes, and that is because the tighter you needle felted, the less likely can fit a large needle into it. By the way, these needles are measured according to the wire gauge. So if you're stabbing a needle into this and you want to know the size, what it is, you could measure it yourself with a wire gauge, but the one that I'm using right now is a 38. And if you want to go down, we also do a 40, which is the higher number, but it's actually a finer needle, and also a 42. And the 40 and the 42 will allow you to really refine the surface, but also if you've made it really small and compact, then that will allow you to finish it off in the firmest way you possibly can. So you can see I'm just working all around the heart, stabbing it to make sure that it's symmetrical. You can see this side is a bit blunter than this one, is a bit more pointy. So I'm going to stab this down a little bit. Now, if you're wondering why I've kept a bit of extra wool, one of the things that can happen is that if you're making a shape, can you see this here? You can get cracks, or you can get a little hole even. If I sort of emphasize this, look, there's a hole there. The great thing about needle felting is you can cover up cracks. I wish it would work with humans. Anyway, there's your spare wool you put to one side. Well, a little bit of it anyway. And all you need to do is take a dusting of this, like a really small amount, lay it over the area that you don't like so much. So you're not building bulk. You're actually just covering up an area that you're not so keen on. And then you just stab the wispy ends in on the side to fasten them in. And then once that's fastened in, you can stab over the top of what you've put on there, and felt obviously all the fibers down into place where you've laid the wool out, and the hole will magically disappear. If it's a giant hole, then you might have to fill it in a little bit more, like with polyfiller, but you're using wool. Don't use polyfiller, it won't work. And then if you want to change the shape and you want to make it slightly more pointy, then you can just literally felt where you would be pushing the needle, so that you can still work lots on the shape. As long as there's air in it, as long as you can squish it, you can manipulate the shape, and you can sculpt the wool with your needle. Now I want to show you also, if you want to make a little, add a little surface detail onto it, then you can use a contrasting wool, which I have got here. It was in that pack, and I've got white here. So what I'm trying to show you is to make a separate little shape. It doesn't have to be a heart. You can make spots, stripes, letters, anything you like. In fact, on here, I think on the instructions, we sort of started spelling love. So you can spell a name on there, anything you like. And to do this, you're literally painting with wool. So you've got your wool. There's a golden rule in needle felting, and that is called less is always more. Okay, so when you're thinking of using felting wool to add something onto it, always use less than you think you need to, because you can always add more. But if you pile it on, then your needle will struggle to work it, and also you can't take it off that easily. So I want to make a heart shape on top of my heart. So I'm teasing this wool out. So I've got a nice small amount, even smaller than what I took off. And then you can pre-shape this by twizzling it between your fingers. So you're making a strand of wool that looks a little bit neater than the fluffy, wispy parts. All of this wool is unfelted, so you're actually felting it by stabbing the needle into it. And then you can add the detail onto there, and all you need to do is you start out, give it one anchor point, so to speak. So you're stabbing the needle in, and you're literally fastening that a strand of wool onto it, and then you're shaping it in the way that you want it to appear on your heart. And I'm trying to do this by not even looking at it, and then you're stabbing into that shape as you're fastening the wool on, as you want that shape to emerge. You're stabbing it on, so this part is now loose and the rest has been stabbed on, and then you obviously go back up. I have to just look at that way. Sorry, I just got to put this down and get a little bit more done before I can show it to you again. So I've just made that little turn here at the base, and then you can work your way round again and then close the heart up here at the top. If you haven't got enough wool, as in the strand isn't long enough, then you can just add a little bit more. And I just got to look at that again, because let's make this a bit neater. So I'm going at the moment, I'm stabbing there. So I've got it almost stabbed on, but now I want to tidy it up. So I'm going to stab into this to make it look neater. So the more you stab into it, the more of the white wool will disappear because you're stabbing it into the heart. And guess what the other thing is that happens? You will also make an indentation on that part of the heart. And so this is what I meant earlier, that you're constantly compensating for wherever you're working. So you need to stab all around that area that you've just stabbed into as well. And my heart's a bit wonky here. So if you don't like that, you can always pull it off and put it right. But it's not as bad as I first imagined it was going to be. If you like the 2D needle felting, then that is possible too. You can make pictures, you can needle felt onto all kinds of fabrics. You can needle felt onto felt, tweed, cotton, anything that takes the needle, but you will need a needle felting mat for this. You can't just do this sort of suspended in the air like I've just done here with a heart. And if you like doing things around wire, you might have heard of using wire armature to make needle felted shapes. I just happen to have here a donkey, and this donkey is needle felted, but he's got posable legs because there is a wire inside. So that's another, these are the 3 types of needle felting that we often talk about. One is 3D shaping like the heart. You can make colorful hearts, hang them up in a garland. Ooh, one upside down. You can, that's all the shaping with wool, 3D. You can flat needle felt, and you can also use wire armature inside. And there are loads and loads of different projects that you can do. If you get hooked onto this, I'm telling you now, the world is opening up to something completely new. You will love it. Like I say, 15 years later, and every day I discover something new. Absolutely love it, and we are here to support you. We're very, very proud to say that we are an extremely customer friendly and supportive business. For us, this isn't just transactional, it's very personal. So we want you to succeed, and we want you to share what you have made. So this is the heart from the other side. It still feels quite fluffy, and I can add more things to it. If you want to hang the heart up like with a little ribbon, then you can sew that straight onto the top. If you have got something like that, which it does come in this heart pack, you get a string, like a rainbow string made from natural fiber. It's a jute fiber. You can literally string the strand onto your needle and just go through the heart because it's nice and soft. And if you have any questions right now, then pop them into the comments. Or if you have questions in the future, you can certainly get in touch with us. We're the makers with 2 S's. I think the back couldn't be plastered more. If you need to come and join us, and maybe we can do another live stream here on Facebook as well. Tell your friends about it if they want to see the magic unfold. I've actually written 2 books on needle felting, one together with my friend and colleague Sophie, and they are very, very popular because they're literally like a little needle felting Bible. So you can have a look at that as well. And in terms of time, well, we've got 8 minutes left. How quick is that? I'm just going to make another heart. How about that? Right, I'm going to use this. I'll give you some more tips. So if you need to roll this up like I did earlier, and you happen to have little bits that just come off, we need to put a little bit to one side anyway. But if you've got other bits that just come off, then instead of laying them side by side, broaden out the largest part you have got, and then lay them on top of each other. So you need to start out with quite a flat batch of wool. I didn't have to do that earlier because it was all in one piece. And then, as I did before, you just roll it into sort of an oblong shape. The tighter you roll this, the less needle felting you've got to do, but the smaller the shape will start out with. So you will find your own best way. One of the lovely things about needle felting is also we now see people's creations, and we can, without knowing who's done it, we can tell who's done it because they just, you develop your sort of your own signature almost on needle felting. So I get to the end of my wispy fibers there, and I'm going to stab them down into the main shape I've just rolled up. Mind your fingers. And now my shape has magically fused together, and now I can work on the shaping. So if I have a look at it first, last time I used the top where I felt it down as the top, but actually on here I feel like this could be better for putting the dent in the top. And then you just work first of all on the sides. So I've turned my heart upside down, not that you can tell yet it's a heart, but it will become one in no time. It is magic. It really is magic, needle felting. And most people who take to it, they just absolutely love it straight away because it's so forgiving. And lots of people have said, I've never been able, this is not me saying it, but the feedback we get from people, they have tried all kinds of crafts and they've kind of given up that they have got any creativity in them. I have an opinion about this. I think everybody is creative. We've just somehow on the way of becoming adults, somehow we've been persuaded we are not, but everybody is. And but a lot of people who've tried knitting and crocheting and sewing, they take to needle felting because it's just the simplest craft to learn, and all you need to do is build your confidence by stabbing a needle. How easy is that? It can be easily transported. You don't have to take out lots of things to be able to do the needle felting. You can just have a little tub, have your project in there, take it out as and when you need it, and then put it away when you keep your needles safe. So make sure that they don't get in the wrong hands. But then that's the same with sewing needles or pins. And then if you need a little bit of stabbing time, take it out, sit down, get your 10 minutes of stabbing in, and then you can put it away again. You can scale things up and down. It's another great thing about needle felting. You can actually, if you decide to make this heart 3 times as big, you just use more wool. You don't need to use 3 times as much wool. It doesn't work like that. But you get the gist because you can build layers on if you want to make the heart bigger. Look, I've made another one. It's fast as that. Just needs a little bit of working on. You can have different tools. Just going to grab... If you don't like the idea of holding a single needle, you can get needle felting tools. This one is our favorite, our 3 needle felting tool. In fact, I've actually only loaded it up with 2 needles. So if you've got a question, do you have to throw away when the needles break? No, you don't. You can also just load it up with 1 needle, and that's fine too. So there are lots of things that you might need to adapt to make it more suitable for you. So you could have a needle felting tool if this needle, let's face it, it's hardly hand friendly, but that is because it actually sits in industrial needle felting machines where there's thousands of them going up and down on loose fiber, and they're turning it into felt. And it doesn't have to be wool. This can also be man-made fiber that can be turned into felt. Everybody knows a tennis ball. The cover of a tennis ball has been stabbed by these needles thousands of times. So that is just one example of a particular fabric that was created with these felting needles. It's a relative modern craft, basically because the felting needles obviously weren't invented until the industrialization. So everything, what I love about it being modern is that everything's possible. There are no stigmas. Nobody said, oh, you can't do this. I mean, I'm a great believer that craft is completely free anyway. Nobody should be saying, oh, you can't do that. You're allowed anything, because let's face it, there is no craft police. Nobody's going to come knocking on your window and say, excuse me, you're not allowed to use this needle on, or this wool, or to use this with that. So, but needle felting is particularly free. So there are so many opportunities still, and yeah, lots of scope to, as I say, put your own signature onto it and come up with your own ideas. Or if you just want to be told what to do, just follow the instructions from beginning to the end and you'll be absolutely fine. We do sell lots of kits and all kinds of things to get you started, but you have got the in the description of all you need to make a heart like this is just 15 grams of wool bats. Remember, wool bats, don't go for wool tops. It will be so much harder to do it. And then you just need a medium needle, and if you don't feel confident holding this in your hand as I'm doing it, then get yourself a felting mat, and you're in business already. And then a ribbon, maybe you've got one kicking around at home, and that's basically it. So I've made a second heart quite quickly, And we're getting to the end of this tutorial. If you want to see more, pop onto our YouTube channel, The Makers, with 2 S's. We also have a Facebook presence, so feel free to follow up on that. And if you are making a heart, share it with us, because today is International Gift Day. So even if it's just a photo, it would be lovely to see this photo. So this is made from the same wool, and you can see that this heart is slightly different from this one. And that's another amazing thing about needle felting, is that you're not making carbon copies, and that's great because there's no pressure on you to have to exactly make it as it looks. You can make your own shape and it will look absolutely beautiful. Well, I thank you very much for taking the time to watch me. I hope that you enjoyed this, and be lovely to hear from you. You can leave feedback here as well, so that we know what we need to do differently or better next time. And I'm hoping that you've found the heart for needle felting and it's pumping excitedly to get you started, because that's how I started, and I'm still here 15 years later and it's getting better and better. So thank you very much for your time, and I will see you hopefully very soon. Bye bye. Take care, everybody.